Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite TTRPG gaming, game design, game review, Game of Thrones. No, that's not us. That's somebody else. Podcast. I'm Shawn Merwin here with my ever pleasant and ever present co-host Teos Abadia. Hey Teos.
Hey, it's Mike Shea basketball time. First games, official games starting up.
That's true. Right around October 31st is they have the big kickoffs for the hoops, if you will, whatever the kids.
Duke plays tonight. A little bit later will be Santa Clara playing the Billikens, my favorite mascot of all time. And I got, not to switch away from important topics, but I'm dual fisting the Dungeon Master's Guide.
All right.
Those I've got those, and I know a lot of people I've talked to have been picking up theirs.
Yeah, I ordered the bundle, the digital and the print version, and I got my notice this morning that my payment was canceled, and therefore I was not getting. It said not getting either version, but I still have the digital version, so I'm cool with that. I don't use books a lot, But yeah, I was I thought, it didn't happen for the player's handbook. So I thought, okay, cool. I'll be safe here. No, they must not have gotten it figured out. So either that or somebody stole my credit card. We could go with you.
Who could have done that? I mean, they would have needed to know you at a certain level of comfort and.
Right. And
anyway, I got 2 books in the mail.
Yeah, exactly. Teos, and also I paid for my son's college.
Yeah. Wait a minute. That's a great idea.
You forgot that.
Oh, man. Yeah. So good weekend.
Good weekend. Saw Men Without Hats. I spent a whole 24 hours not thinking about gaming and work, which is probably a record for me. So
I bet.
It was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't know how hard you work, it's whatever you could imagine, and then just add a lot more to that. It's add a Christmas bonus on top. On my end, I didn't do a bunch of stuff for a while because I was just working on the day job, and now I'm like on a tear creating videos. I'm all excited. I'm digesting like all kinds of a friend of mine, Jeff Mueller who supports our show. We mentioned his work. He shared Forbidden Lands with me. Nice. And I've been eating that up, reading through it. That's been a lot of fun to read, which is a free league kind of gritty OSR style kind of game. That's cool.
Sweet. Well, also cool are our listeners, and they sometimes ask us questions or leave us comments, and we'd like to address those when we can. So we're going to get a couple today, starting with Toast Milk via our Patreon Discord. It could be argued that among all the core classes in D&D, the Cleric is the one that's the most tied to the setting or the world. If marketing and character options balance in a core book were not a concern, should Cleric subclasses be something that was only offered in source books or setting or campaign guides instead of in the core rule book, so as to make sure the mechanics of their domain subclasses fit more naturally with the setting, rather than for the GM having to tweak a setting to accommodate something designed abstractly outside of it. This is a continuation of the discussion we've had over the last several weeks. And I would say, I think divine magic characters are especially setting specific. And I would say warlocks come in a close second when you've got that power that's larger than the rules are potentially larger than the world. And I'm going to push back against myself now because I was beating the drum. I do believe it, but sometimes you have to get a little vehement that, right. There should be nothing that is setting specific in the rules. Obviously D&D succeeds in a lot of ways because there's a setting lurking underneath those rules. So what the designers of D&D need to do is straddle that line between making something that's rich and evocative, or to steal a phrase from Dale Kingsmill, my co-host on the other podcast, vague and evocative. So they need to straddle that line between making something really rich in the setting and making a tool set that's useful for creators and DMs who might want to move in a different direction. So I am happy, honestly, with the way 2014 and 2024 5e handled it, which is not, this is your god and this is what you get because of this god. It's here's the peace domain, here's the war domain, here's the love domain, here's this or that domain, which DMs can then, yes, might have to tweak, but it's easier to tweak than if it was more hard coded into the rules.
There's something to the generic-y, vanilla-y life cleric, light cleric, storm, whatever, like those kinds of tempest, whatever it's called, like they're just very generic, sort of like almost like divine. What are those called? The like the god portfolios, right?
Right.
There's a better word for it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Everybody listening's thinking of it. But, like that kind of sort of just like a columnar thing of like, this is the general area of worship. Like it actually worked far better than I thought it would for 2014. And I think made it very easy to appeal. My preference would be, I wouldn't say that you just only have that in a setting book. To me, what I would like is just a few questions that say, okay, you're a life cleric. Pause and ask yourself, in this campaign, what does that mean? Jot down 3 bullets, right? And you could literally have it like on a character sheet, right? If you're going to do like D&D Beyond could have custom character sheets. It's a cleric. Okay, here are your 3 bullets. Tell me, what's your life cleric really pushing? Like, what's the thing, right? And so it might be like, well, I'm a life cleric. I'm all about vitality, rebirth, and and the why of it, right? And just think about that, and boom, you're done. You're ready to go. Now we could have a setting guide that tells me what those things helps me with those bullets more, and I would love that too, right? And every now and then you're gonna have a weird campaign, your Dark Sun type thing, where it's like, well, the rules are totally different, and in that case, we've got maybe subclasses don't even fit the bill, right? It might not be good enough.
Yeah, and there are games that are much more generic, and they serve as a much better tool set than D&D does. But it also gets less use, less attention, not only because it's not D&D, but because it doesn't have that sort of gravitas of story built into the rules.
Yeah.
And that you end up doing just as much work, I think, to build the setting in those sorts of systems as you would do removing pieces from the D&D setting.
Yeah.
Now, I do hope that designers will keep this part in mind when they are designing the base rules, to remember that it is a tool set, to keep it generic enough that it is easier to use. And I think, like I said, I think they've done that with the clerics of 20.
It's a tough ask, right? Because you want to, like, on one hand, not require a PhD in the god or campaign setting to have a fun game. And 2014 does that really, really well. But you want to somehow allow the person who wants to have a PhD in this thing to be able to, or to write their own dissertation on who their god is and whatever, or that the DM did that, like, for that to all fit together. And yeah, tough challenge.
Yeah, I mean, one thing the system could do, since we're going to talk about this one more minute, is do sort of a build the rule set up, but leave spaces. So sort of what you said with these are the 3 questions, do that for every class, or do that for every subclass of, and this here, whether it's a feat or whether it's a 7th level ability, is bring in from your setting. And here are 3 settings that we're going to give you right from the start to model this.
Yeah.
And then you can pull in your own settings.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a neat idea. Yeah.
Next, we will get to a question from Tom Dunn via also our Patreon Discord. What do you do when good design isn't obvious from an initial reading? Designers can use playtesting to determine if something works or not. Players don't have that luxury. They can only read what's on the page and use their experience and intuition to form their opinion. Are there times when a bit of game design plays well but doesn't read well? Or is reading well a filter on game design that designers simply have to live with? And my attitude toward this is trust but verify. So when I see something on the page, whether it's from Wizards of the Coast, a third-party publisher, or just somebody publishing on the Guild, I will say, I'm going to read this. and I will trust that it's good, but I will verify it through play.
Yeah.
What do you think, Teos?
Yeah, absolutely. I know with adventures as a DM, I've had situations when I read an Adventures League adventure, and one of them particularly stands out that I prepared it for a convention and I thought, wow, this adventure is so lackluster. It was an investigative adventure, and it just seemed like each of the scenes was so like there was nothing super engaging about them. But when I ran it, much to my surprise, the simplicity of it actually meant that it was therefore not confusing. And the players really worked with what was there. The right things were there. It actually worked really well. And I had a suit. It was probably the best convention I ran at that con. And it was backwards of what I expected, right? And I think there's two levels to this question, right? Of like when you read something and you're not so sure about it, whether as player or DM, one thing is that any group can have fun with anything. The worst rules out there, someone's having a blast with them, right? So it's not about whether somebody can have fun. Like always, somebody can have fun. You'll find that person who thinks it's perfect. But on the aggregate of all the people who are going to experience it, have you just created a big barrier towards it working for enough tables? Right? And I think that as you become more experienced game designer, you're probably a little better, not perfect, but you're a little better at assessing from the written word what the likely impact will be on an aggregate of tables, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I've seen with game designers, and myself included, is we get locked into, we know this works and we know this doesn't. And so when we see something that falls outside of this works box, we're like, nope, can't do that. You should never do that. And sometimes I've noticed that game designers will do that working from a place of knowledge, but also that knowledge excludes other knowledge they could be getting. So I've tried to myself say, all right, this isn't how I would normally do this, but let's play it out. Let's play this through and make sure that my bias is confirmed and not right. It doesn't always have to be the way that you think it needs to be.
Yeah, and I think one thing that is important, right, where I do put kind of hard pieces, you know, where I really will bounce off of something. If I was reading it and it's poorly written, then I just worry, like, if you couldn't bother with the words, I don't believe that you bothered with the mechanics.
Right.
Right. Or if you state assumptions that are sort of just demonstrably not true in the text. Right. And even wizards can do this in some of their products, right? Where you make a statement, but the next piece of the rule undermines it. Right. Or you listen to someone talk in an interview, but the written page doesn't do that. Then you can worry about the design because there is a mismatch going on here that has not been properly baked, addressed, worked through. And here it is in the finished product. Right. And that's always a concern. Again, you could still have fun, but that is a weakness that you're pretty sure, you can be pretty sure that there's a weakness there in that text.
Absolutely. So thank you for those questions. And at the end of the show, we'll tell you how you can ask yours. Let's jump into our news and commentary, starting with being able to claim the adventure Scions of Elemental Evil. I know that we talked about this last week, but by golly, I actually got the chance to look at it finally.
What'd you think?
And I liked it. I liked it. I'm not surprised I liked it because Will Doyle worked on it, and I always trust what Will does. But I just want to clarify and point out that this is an adventure you can get on D&D Beyond. Link in our show notes. It's for characters of level 4 to 6 of them, and it also comes with those pre-generated characters based on the 1980s Dungeons and Dragons animated series. If you are looking for just the briefest of spoilers on the plot, if you've played any of the Temple of Elemental Evil adventure from first edition and subsequent, It's very much along those lines.
Yeah.
And so as I read this, I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then I began to worry that we are going to get an absolute flood of the return to the return to the return of elemental evil, except it's not a return because we're back in time to actually before that. It's a we're bouncing all over the place. So get this one, see how it goes, and then prepare for the flood of elemental evil themed
I
content
mean,
on the
it's
DM's
not.
build.
It is November. I was going to say it's October, but I had to check myself before I wrecked
Mhm.
myself. It's November, Shawn. So they're running out of time for 50th, unless they're going to somehow
Yeah,
carry this into the 51st. But I will say that
yeah,
what I liked about one of my favorite things about this is just and I would not be shocked if this is just Will coming up with these names, but the names for the paralemental cults: Children of
yeah.
Splintered Ice, Children of Suffocating Ooze, and the Order of
Mhm.
Falling Ash. And like, boy, just steal that and
Yeah.
put that in your campaign, because that
Yep.
just sounds like
Mhm.
wonderful.
And if you're interested in what the 2024 monsters are going to look like, there is an appendix in this that has three magic items. I'm not going to spoil by saying which ones, and many, many monsters. And I, again, not going to spoil by saying which ones in case you're going to play, but you can get your sneak peek about that stuff in the appendices of this adventure.
Yeah. Mhm.
Jumping into D&D maps, we got a message, or at least I did, saying we're now in beta. I believe they were in alpha before,
Oh, yeah.
and now I think they've gone to beta by adding some new features, including initiative functionality and encounter building functionality. Uh, I didn't see the video, I just read through it, Teos, but what did the video say?
Yeah, so the video walks through a new encounters sidebar you can use to run the initiative on the map's VTT. And so essentially, what you do is you add tokens to the map like you would before for the monsters and for the PCs. But now you can then click on them and add them to the encounters sidebar. You get to see the token little image, which is very sweet, and then the names next to them. And then you can either use static initiative or click on auto roll, and it'll roll the initiatives for those that you chose. The PCs can still roll before in chat, and then you can assign the value. You can group or ungroup monsters so that they can have one initiative for all the monsters you grouped, or you can roll for them individually. So you hit start combat, and now that sidebar has the order for you, and you can go through it. You can add more creatures, and they go into a little pending area, and then you can put them into the initiative. So if you want to surprise things, because maps lets you do things like you can set a creature to invisible, and then when it comes out, you make it visible, and then you could at that point you could add it to the initiative too, so that you don't reveal it. So it supports that. Um, and one nice thing that's kind of cool is when you are in this encounter sidebar, when you're looking at that sidebar, it actually shows you the difficulty. So, like, you put a adult red dragon, and it shows high difficulty based on the characters, which is kind of neat. Turn order is preserved, so you could do something like go through a portal and switch to another map's window, and then come back, and it would still have that initiative kept, which is kind of neat.
Mhm.
Um, there aren't things like monster attacks or anything like that, so that would still be done through your normal integration through D&D Beyond, either through the Discord or something like that. But it's just really about that initiative order, being able to add that there, which I thought was kind of cool.
It is. And I loved the announcement on D&D Beyond where it said Maps is the official D&D VTT that seamlessly integrates with your digital library on D&D Beyond. And I'm thinking, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if people are talking to each other there about
Yeah, yeah.
certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but you can get maps if you have a master tier subscription, and you can share it with your players regardless of what their subscription status might be.
Yeah. Cool.
And link in our show notes to the YouTube video that shows that, or you can just go to D&D Beyond, and it's one of the main stories. Next, we have a new R.A. Salvatore Drizzt novella, but it's Audible only.
Hmm.
So R.A. Salvatore announced a new short novella on Audible called Betwixt Two Worlds, a D&D 50th anniversary adventure, which features Drizzt's daughter with Canterbury, Brianelle Zaharina.
Yeah. Yeah,
And link in our show notes to that.
there's a whole ecosystem now of if you read the first series of novels, or even the first, like, say, 6 or 9, there is now so much of an ecosystem between all the different characters and NPCs and stuff, and they all have families and all that. So if you're into that sort of thing, like, boy, it just keeps adding layers through all of these additions to the saga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you've read all of them, God bless, because even I know people who have tried and they run out of time.
Yeah.
But we have time to look at Discord and the D&D collection that they launched. They have launched a set of avatar and profile decorations, including a gelatinous cube, glowing dice to go around your avatar, or a dragon breathing fire on your profile page. You can also do a one-shot 5e adventure that is Discord themed called Voyage into Discord. The adventure can be launched via the Roll20 activity on the app launcher.
Yeah, I did look at the little avatar and decorations. Discord's free, so every now and then I'll buy one, just kind of almost like my yearly payment to Discord. They generally get in the way of whatever you're trying to do, but they're kind of cool. And yeah, seeing like the dragon breathe fire and stuff, it's neat. It's worth a thought if you like to decorate things like that. I have not checked the adventure out, but amazing that it's there, and that's neat that another way that D&D gets extended to audiences that may not be aware of it.
For sure. And we go from D&D to Ars Magica. Atlas Games has launched the Ars Magica Definitive Edition. This game was released in 1987 originally, written by Jonathan Tweet and Mark Ryan Hagen. Ars Magica RPG favors troop-style storytelling. Players play powerful magi and the companions and other characters who serve them. Tell me about this edition, Teos.
A couple things caught my eye besides the history of it and how it's influenced various RPGs. There's a $1 pledge level that lets you get over 100 digital freebies, including the 4th edition of this game and many other source books. And then through the campaign, they sort of set a level at which they said, well, if we hit this, we will release the text of the core rulebook under the CC by SA 4.0 license. So this allows a creator to use the text commercially, but anybody who uses what you created must in turn use the same share-alike license. So that means that what you create must also be shared, right? So it's a continual sharing. Anything you make becomes open. But that's really neat. A neat kind of take on it. So that means that lots of people could create for Ars Magica if they want. And already we have an example of the first major third-party release, which is the Spanish language sourcebook Finis Terrae el Tribunal de Iberia, focusing on the setting of mythic Spain and Portugal. And this, you've got about a little less than a week on it. And by the time you listen to this, it ends November 14th, or I guess a week. Yeah.
All right. And we haven't been able to get to our creator corner in a while, so let's really dig down in and get some of these things covered. One of the people I saw at GameholeCon was Rodney Thompson, who worked for Wizards, left there and was working and still works, I found out, at Bungie.
Yeah.
But he is still creating on the side, and he is launching a new mailing list and launching new games. Tell us about what you saw there and what he talked about.
Yeah, Rodney, amazing creator, one of the main people behind the math of 2014 5e, made Lords of Waterdeep along with Peter Lee. So he has the new mailing list. You can go to scratchpad-publishing.myshopify.com, and you can sign up for his mailing list, because Rodney says that both Dusk City Outlaws and his Supers game, Spectaculars, are going to get reprinted, and that there will be a new game that he's going to be kickstarting next year. So that's really cool. I love the idea of Rodney Thompson getting back into creating various games, and I love everything he's designed. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I haven't played Spectaculars, but I played Dusk City Outlaws when it was still in sort of playtest mode,
Yep.
and it was super fun
Yeah.
to play. Very mixing storytelling games with sort of more crunchy games really,
Yeah.
really slickly. So
Yeah.
you can check
Yeah.
that out. And I won't try to say the URL again after what Teos went through. But we will talk about MT Black, who is launching World War Weird. Uh, we love MT's work. He has a new OSR offering set in 1941, where magicians and other remarkable operatives confront eldritch forces. What is this about? It's the complete role playing game featuring streamlined mechanics based on the Black Hack. The product includes 4 ready to play characters and a sample mission called the Book of Creation, in which players confront Nazi forces seeking an ancient Kabbalistic tome. If you love fantasy and historical fiction, I'm going to have trouble now. World War Weird is the perfect battlefield for your next gaming session. You can get the PDF for just $2.95 or $9.95 for the hardcover on Drive Through RPG.
Soft cover.
Link in soft cover. Thank you.
Yep.
Soft cover via Drive Through RPG with a link in our show notes. So tell us about Thunder Road Vendetta.
So, friend of the show, Dave Chalker, is one of the designers behind this board game, Thunder Road Vendetta, that has now become an RPG. And in the game is like the board game is like a Mad Max style thing, where it's all about you moving the cars on this play mat and ramming into each other and using all kinds of horrendous additions to your car to, cause devastation. And the RPG leans into this, creating an experience focused on wasteland post-apocalyptic driving. I immediately had to go back to this because it just sounds bonkers. And the kind of thing that I want to learn from, right? Very different from the kind of games on my shelf. It promises quick character creation, furiously fun, over-the-top vehicular action, and ongoing campaign play where you build and maintain your settlement. So this is on Kickstarter through November 21st. Thunder Road Vendetta RPG. It looks fantastic.
Yep.
They even have dice that go in like a little car, and you somehow like move the car, and the die is being rolled. Then you can like lift the car up or something, and it's wild.
Coming from the gentleman who had robot eating sharks, which I love to play with my younger nieces and nephews when it first came out. Get Bit, yeah. Great game and great designer. Last but not least, we have Draconis, the peaceful way to play D&D 5e. This Kickstarter was shared with us by a patron and is quite interesting. It is an attempt to provide 250 pages of options supporting a peaceful play of 5th edition. So tell me about this.
Yeah, the Kickstarter looks really interesting. It ends November 22nd. The rules promise a feel-good game with fun ways to engage other than violence. It's an interesting concept. It's already more than doubled its 20K initial goal. And yeah, all of these options are sort of ways to have non-violent play using 5e.
Mm-hmm. And I want to tip my hat and say thank you to everybody who supported the Grim Hollow Transformed Kickstarter. Funding ended on November 1st, although you could still back via late backing. And we have just crept over 900,000, which is amazing. I did not think that, to be honest, that we would reach that. And I appreciate it more than you can know. And it really does keep me working, keeps me uplifted to create stuff for all the people that backed it. So thank you.
Sweet. Congrats.
Thanks.